The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
The Georgian government is launching the reform of the Partnership Fund. According to Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili, the legislative changes on the restructuring of the State Investment Fund will be registered this December. The details are still unknown. Former Prime Minister Georgi Gakaria was considering the Partnership Fund reform as well since the summer of 2019, after former Minister of Economy Georgi Kobulia noted at the Parliament that the Partnership Fund was ineffective and inefficient. The fund is managed by David Saganelidze from 2015. The Partnership Fund has suffered the loss of 1.70 million between 2015 to 2019. Currently, the main companies under the Partnership Fund are the systematically loss-making Georgian Railway and the Georgian Oil and Gas Corporation, which has relatively better financial results.
The estimated real GDP growth rate in October 2021 amounted to 6.9% year-on-year and 10.5% in 10 months of 2021, showed the preliminary data from Statistics Office of Georgia. In October 2021, the estimated real growth compared to the same period of the previous year was observed in the following activities: manufacturing, transportation and storage, arts, entertainment and recreation, electricity, gas, steam and air conditioning supply, financial and insurance activities, hotels and restaurants, trade. A decline was registered in construction, the report reads.
The Human Rights and Civil Integration and the Legal Issues Committees discussed the bill on tobacco control, which provides the efficient regulation of certain legal relations in a tobacco control sphere. According to one of the initiators, Vladimir Kakhadze, smoking is prohibited in public transports, but this list is supplemented by taxi, cable and sea vehicles. Smoking is also prohibited in a private vehicle when it transports minors.
Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili declares that gambling will be banned for a total of 1 million adults. New taxation will be introduced for the online gambling business, and the total taxable base of the sector will increase by 65 to 70%. The second issue is the age limit. Citizens under 25 will be prohibited from participating in gambling. This restriction also applies to socially vulnerable people who receive assistance from the state, public officials, persons who apply to the Revenue Service with a request to use the self-restraint mechanism, as well as persons who, at the request of family members and the court decision, will be blacklisted, said Irakli Garibashvili. Besides, all television advertising of the gambling business, as well as outdoor and website advertising, will be prohibited. It will be allowed for gambling business operators to sign only an agreement on sponsorship, and this access will mainly apply to sports.
You are watching The Checkpoints with Elena Kvanchilashvili and myself. I'm David Jalogoni, and we gathered to tell you more on business and economy.
Definitely, Sunday 10 p.m. sharp, and we're ready to start. We have a very detailed update for you on pensions, Georgia's pension agency performance and investment outlook, so you have to watch us for the full show. But right now we will be proceeding with the last topic in our headlines minutes ago. As we have already stated earlier this week, Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili unveiled a proposal on major tightening regulations for the gambling business.
Yes, Elena, let's take a close look at what could be the new governmental regulations for the gambling business and what does the Georgian Gambling Association say on the potential new rules. Natia Taktakishvili will tell us more.
Online gambling has never been so easier than now, just by pulling out your phone. While gambling is meant as a form of entertainment, ease of access makes online betting a fast-growing yet potentially risky activity. About 1 million Georgian citizens will be banned from online gambling and will be allowed in brick-and-mortar casinos, Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili stated earlier this week. According to the amendments proposed by the country's finance ministry, citizens under 35 years will be banned from gambling. The finance ministry gives detailed definition on who will also be subject to this measure. These will be the socially vulnerable persons who are getting allowances from the state as well as civil servants. Second regulation will be set in terms of taxation for the online gambling business. Overall, tax base of the sector will be increased by 65 to 70%, which will ensure they contribute the same amount of money to the state budget as earlier. The third measure is to ban advertising of gambling. Any and all TV commercials on gambling, its outdoor advertising and web promotions through Georgian cities will be prohibited. Gambling business operators will be entitled to only conclude sponsorship agreements, and this treatment may be primarily related to sports. As of the amendments, individuals can request self-limitation from a revenue service of Georgia and can be captured in the so-called blacklist on the grounds of court rulings at the request of family members. The government has plans to offer stricter regulations for registration of online gamblers as well as depositing money on their accounts. Financial operations will be made only for registered users, while money transfers between gamblers will be restricted. Restrictions will be imposed on Georgian gamblers who will decide to play in foreign online casinos. Tax providers will be obliged not to make transfers to foreign gambling business accounts. Withdrawal of any amount of draw winning will be charged with 2% income tax. Finance Minister Lasha Khutsishvili told BMG that he does not agree with the assessment of Gambling Business Association, noting that business will go back 20 years due to the planned amendments.
I don't know why the sector said that with these regulations the gambling industry will go back 20 years. If we look at the scale of regulation, the business is regulated in all countries of the world and at the same time quite strictly. I can't share the pathos that regulating the gambling business should be some kind of surprise for anyone. As for the age threshold, it varies in different countries and in some places it's completely forbidden.
The Ministry of Finance and its Revenue Service have already drafted the bill, which will be present in Parliament in the nearest future. The government of Georgia hopes to pass all the amendments needed to regulate the gambling industry before the end of 2021.
The inflation is still soaring and breaking new records. In November 2021, the consumer price index increased by 0.6% compared to the previous month, while the annual inflation rate amounted to 12.5%, according to the preliminary data from the National Statistics Office of Georgia.
The annual inflation rate was mainly influenced by price changes for the following groups: food and non-alcoholic beverages. The prices in the group increased by 70%, oil and fat 27.7%, vegetables 26.2%, bread and cereals 20.4%, milk, cheese and eggs 70.9%, sugar, jam, honey, chocolate and confectionery 70.4%, fish 16%, fruit and grapes 15.5%, mineral waters, soft drinks, fruit and vegetable juices 13.6%, meat 10.7%, coffee 10%, cocoa 6.9%.
The prices in the transport sector increased by 20.2%, contributing 2.5 percentage points to the annual inflation rate. Within the group, the prices increased for operation of personal transport equipment 30.1% and transport services to 2.6%. Along with this, the prices decreased for purchase of vehicles by 3.3%.
Housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuels. The prices for the group posted 11.5% higher for the following subgroups: electricity, gas and other fuels 40.2%, maintenance and repair of the dwelling 7.2%, water supply and services relating to the dwelling 4.5%. In the same period, prices were lower for actual rentals for housing by 2%.
David, rising prices are a big problem, but during the pandemic, logistics has also become a big problem and a big burden to doing business in Georgia and elsewhere worldwide. So I think today's rubric, Made in Georgia, is showcasing how business can deal with such challenges effectively.
You're talking about the first logistics company that has been established in Georgia in 2020, right?
Absolutely. It's called Fruit Logistics and ensures that the whole production chain works effectively from a farmer to markets. And not only within Georgia, by the way, Fruit Logistics covers markets in Singapore as well 3 times a month. Next on the checklist is to sell Fruit Logistics products using QR codes. Here's what's made in Georgia.
I am Nino Kapanadze, the founder and director of Fruit Logistics. In 2020, we had the idea to start a logistics company. Before that, we had many experiences with farmers, and we knew that they had problems selling their products. Before the product goes from the farmer to the market, it has to go through a whole logistics chain. Not all farmers have the funds and the knowledge to do so. So the company we created decided to set up this management system to offer the services to farmers. The first investment to buy the land was 3 million lari. Last year, we added a new refrigeration system, and our productivity has increased, so we had to invest an additional $1 million. Our services include cooperation with farmers and the sale of their products. However, before we sell the product, the farmer's raw material gets into our warehouse, where we sort it by quality. At this stage, our company employs 60 people. We grow 400 to 500 varieties of vegetables and fruits, depending on the season. We have already created our own brand page under which we sell the products. Now we are introducing QR code system. Our products will have these codes, and when the user scans it, they will see from which farmer the product was bought, what route they went through before reaching the customer. At this stage, we're introducing the HACCP standard, giving us the idea to make a waste processing plant. This production will be launched very soon. We already have exports. At this stage, it's in Singapore, at least 3 times a month. Now, with only 5% of our company exports, we will further strengthen the export direction from next year.
GM Pharma has represented Georgia at the International Pharmaceutical Exhibition CPHI Worldwide 2021 hosted by Milan this year. The main goal of the company was to find new contacts and deepen cooperation with world-famous pharmaceutical companies.
Well, CPHI Worldwide seems to be the perfect place to do that, uniting thousands of pharma suppliers and buyers across the full supply chain. CPHI Worldwide is the best platform to source, connect, and learn within the industry. Here's more from the checkpoints.
Hello, thank you so much for your time. As it's known, in the first half of November, more precisely from November 9-11, GM participated in the international exhibition. The exhibition was held in Milan. Tell us how, with what status did GM Pharma present itself at this exhibition, and in this regard, what is the main goal and task of the company?
Thank you so much for this question. In early November 2021, GM Pharma participated in the International Pharmaceutical Exhibition CPHI 2021. The company presented Georgia as a leader of the pharmaceutical manufacturer at the exhibition. The exhibition brings together more than 1,400 pharmaceutical manufacturers from 170 countries around the world and serves to create a unified cooperation space for them. The goal of GM Pharma at the exhibition was to find new contacts and deepen the already started cooperation, which was the precondition for the preparation of our company's main goal to enter the European Union market. The company took advantage of the occasion and carried out some preparatory work on CPHI 2021. Our team met with about 400 different delegations, including representatives of various pharmaceutical companies, technological transfer issues from European Union countries to Georgia, outsourcing projects were discussed, as well as possibilities for joint development of new medicines at GM Pharma Research and Development Laboratory in Georgia. We also discussed contract manufacturing at GM Pharma's Tbilisi plant for European companies. We can confidently say that after this exhibition, GM Pharma came one step closer to its goal of having a presence in Europe and entering the European pharmaceutical market. This exhibition has further increased the international awareness of the company. The desire to cooperate with us has been expressed by many well-known companies with an international reputation. Cooperation with existing employees has risen to a higher degree. Consequently, all this is a good precondition for our future success.
First of all, congratulations. Participating in this international exhibition is not only prestigious but also brings some responsibilities. So, tell us, what does it mean for GM Pharma to participate in an international exhibition in this regard?
CPHI Worldwide is an international exhibition held since 1989. The exhibition brings together all companies participating and employed in the pharmaceutical industry, manufacturers of finished pharmaceutical products, manufacturers of active pharmaceutical ingredients, manufacturers of excipients, intermediate products, companies producing herbal extracts, and etc. This allows them to establish contact with each other, consider integration opportunities as well. The Milan exhibition was under special anticipation because the planned CPHI was cancelled in 2020 due to the pandemic, so the expectations were high. So to speak, many companies missed human interactions and networking. Many of the partnership issues that the pandemic has caused have been improved thanks to this pharmaceutical exhibition. This pharmaceutical exhibition was very successful for us as well. First of all, I must mention that the project of technological transfer is a production of one of the European pharmaceutical companies has almost reached the last stage. And most likely we will start this project in Georgia in 2022, which is a great achievement for the company in recognition. European company will recognize us as a partner and will be ready to carry out all stages of its production in a factory in Georgia. In addition to the success, it's a huge responsibility as GM Pharma from Georgia was the only pharmaceutical company to exhibit at CPHI.
You said that the company is actively preparing to enter the EU market. What portfolio of medicines does GM Pharma include?
GM Pharma's portfolio of medicines is currently quite large. We own 152 drugs of 262 names and cover almost all areas of medicine, including food supplements. The medical fields we acquire in terms of medicine production include cardiology, endocrinology, pediatrics, gynecology, surgery, neurology. Drugs for modern medicine in GM Pharma's list of medicines are provided with modern recommendations and guidelines. On the 22nd anniversary of its establishment, GM Pharma is no longer a local pharmaceutical company. It's an international, multinational pharmaceutical company whose above-mentioned medicines are produced not only in Georgia but also in Western Europe, Spain, Germany, Switzerland, Portugal, GMP-certified companies. As for our production in Tbilisi, it's the largest pharmaceutical production in the Caucasus region, where a complex cycle of production of solid forms of medicines is carried out, from the search for raw materials to the release of the final product according to the requirements. In solid forms, I mean tablets, capsules, and medicines in the form of powdered dosages.
Finally, I would like to know more about the countries where GM Pharma exports medicines. In this regard, are there any plans to expand the geographical area, and in general, what are your future plans for both the short and long term?
It's a very interesting and good question. I like to answer this question often because the future of the company will definitely depend on international expansion of the operational area. Currently, GM Pharma has a representative office in 5 CIS countries where our representative offices operate and about 225 people are employed in this field, and the Georgian pharmaceutical product is successfully sold. I would like to mention one interesting fact. Since 2019, GM Pharma's exported products have exceeded the figure sold in Georgia. In 2020, our exports stood at about $30 million. A month and a half ago, we expected that by 2021 the export rate would be around 36 million, but due to the recent situation, it may be 40 million, which is a great success for any Georgian company and extremely beneficial for the Georgian economy. As for the medium-term plans, we are going to open a representative office in Belarus at the end of this year. Ukraine has already been embarked for 2022. Ukraine is one of the largest pharmaceutical markets, and we have a great responsibility to enter the Ukrainian market. And from 2023, our main goal, which is why we are on CPHI, is to start operating in a European Union pharmaceutical market. We think that by 2023, one drug, which is a cardiovascular drug, will be registered in one of the Baltic countries, and then the drugs will be registered in Eastern Europe and Central Europe. We will continue to operate in these markets. These are the plans for the next 2-3 years maximum. Full development of the nearby region is a post-Soviet space and already entering the European Union market as a start with a few countries.
Thank you so much for the interesting interview. I wish you a lot of success. Thanks for your time.
Let's talk about more business then. Here's what our reporter Natia Taktakishvili pulled together to show us what the business week looks like for the checkpoints.
Entree launches chain 6 bakery in Baku with investment of $250,000. Entree launches chain 6 bakery in London with investment of $250,000. Lika Mikautadze, the head of marketing communications of the company, declares that the company continues to expand abroad. According to her, Entree still plans to open other branches in Baku. Also, the company plans to launch additional branch in London by spring. Entree operates 14 facilities in Georgia, 6 in Baku and 1 in London. How much will M Group invest in the expand of Quarelli Lake Resort? M Group will invest $7 million in the expand of Quarelli Lake Resort. According to Business Development Director Nanam Javanadze, construction works are underway and the hotel will be able to receive guests by the end of 2022. The new hotel will unite 60 rooms, a conference hall for around 200 persons, a restaurant, lounge bar, 2 terraces, indoor swimming pools, spa, and etc. Exports of Bayez wine up by 25%. Baya Buladze, the founder of a small winery, Bayez Wine, declares that their wine exports are up by 20 to 25%. Products of Bayez Wine are exported in 14 countries. Wine company has expanded in Asia amid the pandemic and makes exports in Japan, Singapore, and South Korea. Baya Buladze notes that they will soon enter the Chinese market. In addition to Asia, Bayez wines are sold in France, Germany, Austria, the Netherlands, the United Kingdom, Latvia, the United States, and other countries. The company's annual production capacity amounts to 18,000 bottles, of which 5% is export-oriented. The winemaker notes that price for per bottle wine amounts to $7-8 in the foreign market. Oil processing plant to be built in Kulevi. Company Fazis Oil declares that the company will start construction of an oil processing plant in Kulevi in 2022. According to Gia Shavdia, director of Fazis Oil, the company plans to invest $1.2 billion in the construction of an oil processing plant. The plant will produce over 4.5 million tons of crude oil annually. Initially, Soccer Georgia investments planned to build a plant and create free economic zone in Kulevi, but the state oil company of Azerbaijan did not implement the project, and in 2016 Fazis Oil took over the obligations. National Delicacy exported 4 products in Canada. As the founder of the company, Otar Simonishvili told BMG, 20,000 packages of ready-made dishes were sent to the new market. The company is in talks with several countries, including Russia, and plans to expand its export markets. Chicoli profits up by 40% this year. Handmade chocolate company Chicoli declares that the company's profits are up by 40% this year. Tamta Benashvili, the founder of Chicoli, told BMG. She declared that both retail and corporate sales increased, which was particularly low during the pandemic. Despite the fact that raw materials are increased in price by 20-30%, Benashvili says that chocolate price has remained unchanged. Handmade chocolate brand Chicoli was founded in 2017. The company mainly takes corporate orders. Chicoli imports the necessary raw materials from Italy and Turkey. Carrier to open a branch in Bakuriani. Restaurant chain Carrier plans to open a branch in Bakuriani. Nutsa Gogoladze, co-founder of Carrier, told BMG. She says that the company opens a new branch with a bank loan. This is the first regional branch for the restaurant chain. Carrier is operating on the market since 2005. The company owns 9 facilities in Tbilisi. Kisa to grow blueberry plantations. The farm Kisa is growing blueberry plantations, as Taco Ahladiani, marketing director of the company, told BMG. Blueberry plantations are currently grown on 20 hectares in Kobe, and finally the total area of the plantation will reach 30 hectares. The company plans to grow plantations next year in Skaltubo as well. The company's Kisa was founded with an investment of $400,000 USD and employs 15 people. All state and commercial nurseries will be established in Georgia, the Minister of Agriculture Levan Davitashvili said. According to the minister, an agreement on establishment of nurseries has already been reached between the state and the International Olive Council. Up to 10 mills closed down in Georgia. Up to 10 mills were closed down in Georgia recently. As of the National Association of Wheat Growers, local producers can't compete with Russian flour. According to Levan Silagava, the mills were closed in Ajara, Kakheti, and Chidakartli. At the same time, a large number of manufacturers have reduced production capacity. Fruit Logistics to invest $1 million USD in fruit and vegetable processing plant. Company Fruit Logistics will open a deformed fruit and vegetable processing plant in the test mode from January 2022. As of the founder of the company, Nino Kapanadze, told BMG, the company will invest $1 million USD to create a new enterprise. Fruit Logistics is the first logistics company in Georgia which processes up to 500 types of fruits and vegetables produced by Georgian farmers and provides a complete chain of product sales.
Meanwhile, Georgia is in the spotlight globally, and that's mainly because of the UN World Tourism Organization 24th General Assembly in Madrid, Spain. The General Assembly has brought together more than 1,000 delegates from 135 countries last week. Coming together for the 24th General Assembly in Madrid, Spain, members from every global region approved the organization's program of work and endorsed key initiatives designed to build a more resilient, inclusive and sustainable tourism.
Opening the General Assembly, Secretary General Zurab Pololikashvili cited the spirit of solidarity and determination that has defined tourism's response to an unprecedented crisis. In presenting his report to members, he made clear how a focus on collaboration and harmonization of protocols, political advocacy, and securing financial support for tourism have helped the sector mitigate the impacts of the pandemic and laid the foundations for tourism restart in many parts of the country. In every global region, the pandemic has made clear the importance of our sector for economic growth, for jobs and trade, and for protecting natural and cultural heritage. We must make the most of this opportunity to transform goodwill into concrete support.
Yes, emphasizing the significance of the General Assembly as well as UNWTO's elevated stature within the global agenda, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres welcomed delegates and called for them to work together for a green, inclusive, sustainable future.
Countries dependent on tourism have seen their revenues drop, with livelihoods badly affected. For economies reliant on tourism, particularly those with large informal sectors and those impacted by the climate crisis, this is an economic catastrophe. As we restart and recover from the pandemic, WTO has a key role in rethinking tourism and its interaction with societies, economies, and our natural resources and ecosystems. That means green tourism with high-emitting sectors including air and sea transport aiming for carbon neutrality. It means inclusive tourism that benefits marginalized communities and contributes to gender equality and intercultural understanding. And it means sustainable tourism, which builds resilience, protects our planet, and delivers on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
The United Nations Secretary General's words of support were echoed by the representatives of key international organizations. Alongside receiving an update on World Tourism Organization activities since the last General Assembly 2 years ago, members also benefited from a comprehensive overview of the latest tourism trends as indicated by this organization's latest data, as well as an updated overview of restrictions of travel worldwide.
A number of initiatives that would enable us to safely reopen our economies and societies. From the activation of the Global Tourism Crisis Committee and close cooperation with the WHO to the global guidelines for safe tourism services, the UN system, and in particular Secretary General Pololikashvili, has played a key role in helping the tourism sector recover. We will continue our efforts working closely with the UNWTO and other international partners to ensure interoperability with other COVID certificates and facilitate safe travel inside and outside our borders.
From the floor of the Assembly, members from different global regions expressed their solidarity with countries impacted by the continued imposition of travel restrictions.
We are starting to see a slow recovery that we must support. I really commend UNWTO, his Secretary General, and his team for guiding and leading the sector during these difficult times. No doubt, tourism can be a very important part of the post-pandemic recovery.
I think our organizations have demonstrated an excellent level of solidarity and efficiency throughout this challenge. And we now have a very solid foundation and some excellent motivation to guide our future collaboration. I look forward to seeing just how much progress we can achieve together in the important months ahead.
Also in Madrid, member states voted in person to approve the World Tourism Organization Executive Council's nomination of Mr. Pololikashvili to serve as Secretary General for a second term. On the back of the strongly favorable vote, Mr. Pololikashvili will lead this organization from 2022 to 2025.
Our congratulations again and again to Mr. Pololikashvili. This week, the report by the Pension Agency was introduced by its director, Georgi Danelia, along with the statistical data of the agency, and answered the questions at the parliamentary hearing of the report of the Budget and Finance Committee.
The data from the pension agency is positive despite the pandemic, though the problem lies in a high inflation, which means that the inflation absorbs those positive outcomes that are related to the profitability of the agency. The chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, Irakli Kovzanadze, stated during the discussion of the 6-month report for 2021 by the pension agency.
Yes, let's look at the figures. More than 5,000 employers and 60,000 employees have joined the e-system during the accounting period, and total participants constitute 1,200,000 persons. As to the outcomes, as of June 30, 2021, the number of persons in the system constituted 166,737, and the total funds constituted 1,550,400,000 lari during the accrued interest, 173 million lari. More in our exclusive interview with Olivier Rousseau, chairman of the investment board of Georgia's pension agency. Let's start from the social and economic benefits of pension reform.
We see the pension reform as a very critical one in this country. In every country, actually, it's a very defining feature of an economy and a society, what the pension arrangements are. And in countries that are becoming efficient economies, like Georgia, you need to have an arrangement for pensions. Then there are political choices to be made. It's not in our constituency for us, the investment board members, to decide what is politically right and wrong. What we can say is we see a very coherent institution that has been put in place by the law. It means, first of all, people will have better security for the time when they get old. They will have a better guarantee of having resources to support themselves. It has also a lot of consequences on the way the economy functions. It means you have more capital available with two great virtues: patience and competency. Because when individuals think of their old days, and they should, and they save by themselves, that is something good. But when the money is managed by specialists, they have competencies and investment opportunities available to them, which are much broader and cheaper to implement than when it is you or I investing personally. So that is very, very crucial.
Mm-hmm. Since you have been serving in French pension agency as well for years, what could be some of the similarities and differences in investment strategies in EU and, for example, in Georgia, which is an emerging economy?
In Georgia, the big difference is the set of available investment opportunity is much narrower. And we are working towards broadening this set of investment opportunities. It is a very pleasant element of this visit of the investment board that we see there is a very broad support for this concept of broadening the set of available investment opportunities for the pension agency. The supervisory board, the ministries, and the chairwoman of the supervisory board seem to be very much on this wavelength. The same with the National Bank of Georgia. The same with the parliament. We had a meeting with the chair of the Commission for Budget and Financial Affairs, and it all seems very aligned. This is very important, and I have to say, to us it is, we see an evolution. 2 years ago, the approach was not quite the same. So things have moved very much in the right direction, in our opinion, because we said it from the start, over time, we will need to have access to more asset classes. And now the mentalities in the society and the reflection in the authorities around the pension agency have evolved.
Yeah, that was my question. What makes you think that this is the right time to request more aggressive investment? Because at this point, what the regulator has been saying basically was that pension agencies should invest in less risky tools, right? So what makes you think that it is time to step up for more aggressive investment strategy?
Actually, I am not necessarily saying that.
That's interesting.
Not necessarily. So your question is right, but my answer will be a bit different from what you expected in the tone of your question. Because what we are saying is within the same very tight risk parameters of the low-risk portfolio, which is the only one authorized by the law for another 2 years. Within this concept of the low-risk portfolio, we can actually implement the risk appetite, which is limited, more efficiently if we have access to more asset classes. We can invest in equities, yes, 20% maximum. But implementing investment in equities, they can be done, these investments, by buying listed equities. They can also be done by buying unlisted equities. And the risk in buying listed equities is not necessarily inferior to the risk involved in buying private equity. And as long as, which is the case for the pension agency, you have a very long-term investment horizon, then you are able to capture the added returns provided by unlisted equities, private equities, because there is an illiquidity premium. So that's one example. The same exactly can be said for private debt. We can take a lot of fixed income debt securities risks, but debt securities risk can be implemented by buying listed bonds or certificates of deposits. It can also be implemented by buying unlisted assets. So same type of risk, but an implementation which gives more diversification and which can give an illiquidity premium. The same reasoning can apply to other types of asset classes which today are not allowed in the low-risk portfolio. Investing in infrastructure projects, investing in real estate projects, these are not asset classes currently allowed under the low-risk portfolio. It's not additional risk, but this is risks that you can combine in a different way and broadening the entities on which you take the risk. All that means you can have a better portfolio for the same amount of risk acceptable and utilizing the potential to invest for the long term, not having a need to be liquid for all the portfolio.
So what could be the major challenge to this strategy that you are now talking? What could go wrong, and why can regulator not consider?
Well, from the discussions we have had, there is a very broad common understanding that these are desirable evolutions. Now, we have the right in the law on pensions to make proposals, to suggest changes, which we are doing informally at this stage, and we will do in a formalized manner very soon. So initially it has to be a dialogue. It would be very wrong on our part, I think, to discuss among ourselves, just the investment board, and say, this is what we think is desirable, and we send a letter. That would not be the way.
Of course.
So we discuss among ourselves, then we exchange views with all the interested parties. That is the supervisory board, that is the National Bank of Georgia, that is the parliament. And having exchanged views and taken into account the very good remarks made to us, we are able to put together a proposal which will be a good one, I think. What could go wrong? Not much, in my opinion, because we are building a consensus. It's been a matter of confidence building, because it has been clear that the investment board has remained very involved despite the difficulties of the COVID. It has been clear that we've been able to achieve very important milestones, being the appointment of the specialized depository and the adoption of a full-fledged investment policy document, which the National Bank of Georgia told us in writing is compatible, conforms with the law, as is the duty of the National Bank of Georgia as our supervisor. So we have reached very important milestones here, and this has created progressively more and more trust among all the interested parties. I think also the fact that we have been arguing, advocating for these evolutions has had an impact, and I'm sure the interested parties that I named, that I mentioned before, they have contact with other very good providers of advice. They discuss with the World Bank, they discuss with the IMF, they discuss with other pension funds. I would give an example. I believe the example in Armenia, which is quite a different one from the solution in Georgia, but this offers the opportunity for good discussions, good exchanges.
You mentioned some different stakeholders like EBRD, World Bank, and so far. And one of the main virtues of this reform, as stated by officials and by these partners as well, was that this long-term lari should have helped building local capital markets. And there was seen this kind of like a direct link between building the pension reform and building the capital and developing capital markets. Do you see this direct link there?
Absolutely, absolutely. Our first mission is to build within the available risk and other constraints allowed by the law and the regulation the best possible portfolio for our participants. So for each category or amount of risk tolerable, we need to do our best to bring the best return. Building the capital markets in Georgia is not our first target, but it's a logical implication.
This point, what I'm listening to you and all these changes to the investment strategy that you are negotiating with different stakeholders among the government and regulator stem also from the underdeveloped local capital markets as well, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, get me right, it's not our fundamental objective stated by the law to develop the Georgian capital markets, but it is it's a logical, necessary implication to better serve the participants. We need more instruments in which to invest, and that is exactly developing the capital markets. And in particular, we as the pension agency being able to invest in long-term lari financings, we will make a huge change to the capital markets in Georgia. And we have the horizon, the investment horizon, long enough to do that. We have the competency to analyze the investment opportunities, and all it takes is, say, a few tweaks in a few limits that apply today. So by I will not go into detail here, but by changing a few limits, we will be much more able to deploy long-term capital in lari, and that will have a big impact on the economy.
We are talking here about the long-term investment, of course, but former head of the pension agency, he stated that for a year or more, the inflation will be still eating up some of our savings. What is the strategy there to hedge this inflation?
All of that is essentially correct. Yes, there is a spike in inflation, but our analysis is it will not last very long. The inflation rate will come down. And during the time that the inflation rate has increased, of course, the real return shown by our investments has been less favorable. It is still a good one, but it has become less favorable, absolutely. But what we have in the portfolio is essentially medium-term returns, nominal returns on the medium term. When the inflation comes down, then the difference between the nominal returns and the inflation rate will increase very significantly. Reading the real returns over a 1 month or a couple of quarters horizon is not the way we should do it.
Understandable. And also to tie this picture into the more global picture, we would like to hear some outlook of global investment climate, and what are some of the parts of the SWOT there?
It's a good question because it's a difficult one to answer for me. But let me start by saying that we are very grateful to the National Bank of Georgia for the flexibility they have shown in the early stages of our investments. Because as long as we didn't have the investment policy document fully in place and the specialized depository in place, an interpretation of the law could have been, well, all the pension contributions collected by the pension agency cannot be invested. They have to stay on current accounts. And then all we could have been doing would have been to negotiate with each bank appropriate rates, which, by the way, the team has been doing. But what the central bank allowed us to do was to deploy the monies collected from the contributions into medium-term investments, medium-term monies with the banks. We think markets are expensive in general, the world over. We would have liked to see cheaper markets to invest in, and as a consequence of our judgment that markets are expensive, equity markets in particular, we will not plan to invest in just one big chunk. We will do that progressively. And we think this is a prudent way to implement the allocation. But there is also something which can help us despite the fact that the markets are expensive. This is the diversification we were speaking about before.
Are you seeking this diversification also abroad? Because we know that there is a 20% threshold. Are you negotiating to, for example, expand that threshold as well?
I think the diversification for us, it's mostly in the Georgian economy. And post the COVID situation, our assessment is there are very good opportunities to deploy capital in the economy of Georgia. There always were good opportunities, but there are even more opportunities now.
Interesting points, Elena. And that's all for today. We will meet you on Sunday, 10 p.m. here in the Checkpoints.
Meanwhile, check us out and follow us on bm.g and forbes.g till Sunday.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.